As many of you know, the United States has an increasing problem with homelessness, the situation of homelessness. Millions of people around the United States are suffering with homelessness and cannot get out of this situation, which is actually pretty sad. So today I will be covering the problem of homelessness and the effects of homelessness and the solutions to decreasing the homeless rate. So, what is the definition of homelessness? Many people around the world are homeless. About 30% of those people without homes are experiencing chronic patterns of homelessness. 60% of individuals are experiencing homelessness as a male. So that's just the male and not the female. What is the history of the problem? Well, the problem was first noticed around the 1870s, and that was around the time where homelessness was used to describe tramps, which were people that were going out to look for work. So technically, that was not even what we use now for the term homelessness. The initial reaction to the problem is to figure out why there are hundreds of people that are homeless. So to figure out why there are so many homeless people, and COVID was one of the problems too that made people homeless. So the extent of the problem, how bad is homelessness? What has happened? How has the problem escalated? Well, in the 1980s, it increased because of people who were living with HIV and AIDS. So at that time, it was like a little bit more harsh as it is now. So back then, people thought that you can get AIDS by just touching people or being in the same room as them. So they were having trouble finding places to work too. So those types of people were homeless at the time. So what is the volume, the depth, and the scope of the problem? So 500,000 people right now in the U.S. are experiencing homelessness in the U.S. and approximately 34,000 of those 500,000 people are unaccompanied youth, so children. So then the next is the very types of people. So 37,000 are veterans, and then 110,000 are chronically mental illness. So that is just like people that have mental illness and then who couldn't find work because of their mental illness and have just gone back to the street. So why should we be concerned? So we should be concerned mainly because it can happen to anybody. A lot of people don't think it can happen to anybody, but it sure can. So does it affect me? Not really, because I am living under my parents' house, but still it can happen to anybody, so it can happen to them too, knock on wood. And everybody around me at my old school, which was U Tampa, basically had pretty wealthy families, but teachers made sure that they were able to let the students know if they needed help or anything, because one teacher said she saw a kid living out of their car. I personally never seen it happen, and a lot of people in the room didn't see it happen either, but it does happen, and some people can hide it really well. But I find it really interesting that the school mentioned it. And then people are also losing work. So that's how people are in this situation in the first place. So veterinarians are being discharged, and then COVID was a big thing, causing businesses to shut down, everybody using online more than going into person. So small businesses were shutting down, some big businesses were shutting down too. And people didn't have any more money because people were losing their houses because their place of work was shutting down. My dad personally had to start working from home because the offices shut down, but a lot of people aren't that lucky, and the businesses shut down. They couldn't work from home and stuff like that. So the effects of the problem of homelessness. So a lot of the people are gaining higher levels of distress from being homeless, because it is a stressful thing, wondering when you're going to get your next meal because you don't have a constant income. It's all depending on the people around you. Are you finding it? And it's more damage of coping behaviors than normal people who would cope. So people who are homeless will turn to drugs, harder types of drugs like heroin, cocaine, to deal with it and see if they can get themselves out of it, put themselves in a different place, so they aren't constantly being sober and realizing that they are in such a bad situation. How is it continuing? People are constantly losing work. So veterans and stuff like that, when they're being discharged, and mental health is also a factor. So a lot of people with mental health problems are on the streets, and that is because of them probably not doing well in home and stuff like that, and so they got kicked out or something, stuff like that. Anything can happen when you have a mental health problem, and it can cause you to be homeless. So, solution to the problem. A general solution is actually addressing the problem. So how will this help? This will help by reducing the entries of the homelessness. So that's, like I said earlier, kids being homeless, older people being homeless, veterans being homeless. And how will this be a good thing? So helping more people through the system to a foster housing will actually help them. Instead of being on the streets, they're actually in a place with food and all that stuff by the community helping them get on their feet. It'll save millions of children from being born into homelessness too, because children don't have the voice to not be born into homelessness. They're automatically born into it if their mother or father is homeless and living on the streets. So solution outcomes: longer lives for people who are homeless. So those people who are being helped by the community and are being put into a house, they will live longer because they're not going through such extreme weather changes, extreme stress, and all that stuff. And it will save, and then places will also be cleaner for people to live. So basically, the places around like California, it has a lot of homeless people, so the streets are filled with homeless people. And if people were to come together and bring the homeless people out, then that area where all the homeless people were sitting on the street will be cleaner and will bring more people to come and attract, and that means more money and then more ways to help the homeless people get into more homes. So what can I do as one person? So what I can do is encourage all of you to spread awareness. And basically by spreading awareness, you can start a petition, you can protest and do stuff like that. You could do social products by going out. You can post on social media. You can even go to your local church, but that's what I did. I go to my local church, pack bags of food for them, and they end up going on the streets and giving them to homeless people so they have a meal for that day. And then there's also other stuff too, like cans of soup, so they can even save that for days to come, because cans of soup can last a while. And then what can you also do when it comes to protesting? So you can go against the government, protest against the government for giving them higher money for injured people who cannot work, and also for retired people. So a lot of times you do see retired people or older people pushing carts at stores, which isn't really the best thing for them to do, because they are older, and mainly younger people like teenagers, young adults should be doing that, and not older people. And that is mainly because that their social security checks or all that stuff isn't coming in enough, or isn't raising and is staying the same price, while the economy and everything else around them, the prices are raising. So it's also causing them to be homeless too. So today I have told you why homelessness is a problem, and I have also defined the problems of homelessness, how bad the problem of homelessness is, what the effects of homelessness is, and the possible solutions to stop homelessness and decrease it, and what you can do to help stop homelessness, as well as what I can do to help stop homelessness. So today I explained the different types of homelessness, as well as the different types of people who are homeless, and enough ways to get people off the street. So thank you.